Will, welcome for a start. Many employers say that they support veterans, but then they hesitate in actually hiring them. Why should anyone hire a veteran?
Good question. The obvious reasons, the obvious ones: the discipline, the teamwork, the commitment, and what they bring. But also, there's more to it. I believe. I think they're very adaptable, veterans, because, well, firstly, they learn very quickly because they've come from an environment where you've got no choice but to learn quickly. Everything's intense. Everything's not rushed, but it's just really intense. So naturally, they learn very quickly because of the environment. And they're adaptable, again, because they've got to be. When you're serving in the military and you're in environments where, you know, the military's there because the civilians can't do it or don't want to do it. That's the reason for a military. So you're in environments where you've got no choice but to adapt quickly, and you've got no choice to learn quickly. And when you spend so long doing something, that becomes habit, that becomes how you operate, if you like. So you come from that environment to a different environment, you naturally pick stuff up a lot quicker. So as an employer, to hire a veteran, they might not have the skill, or they might not have the talent, if you like, there and then, but they've certainly got the attitude and the teachability, and they can pick stuff up a lot quicker.
Well, I guess that's a common, misunderstanding that, you know, when veterans, I've heard people say before, when veterans come out of the army, like, they sort of have lost it a bit because they then become lazy or whatever. But I think that's probably a misconception. Because there are plenty of civilians who do that on a regular basis, you know. What do employers get wrong about veterans when they're entering construction, do you think?
I think there is a misconception. There's a lot of misconceptions. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people join the military and they become robotic. They become yes men or women. They become like they can't get away from, like, they get given an order and they take it literal, you know. That's a massive misconception. I think when I was in anyway, gone were the days of just blindly following orders. You have to think for yourself. You have to be able to think on your feet. And if someone has served 4 or 5 years in the military, they don't come out and they're not a robot. You know what I mean? You've got to remember, everything changes, and environments change, and war changes, and conflict changes. So if you have an army of people that just blindly follow a leader, there's not that many people in the military now, in compared to like the good old days, if you like. The army will get wiped out very quickly if you're just blindly following someone. So you've got to have the ability to be able to think on your feet and change from what the plan is. You know, there's a saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You know, you can spend days, sometimes weeks, planning. Something happens and the plan just goes out the window. So you've got to be skilled enough and have the confidence in your conviction to be able to adapt. And ex-military and veterans are very good at adapting. So that misconception of just blindly following someone is wrong.
Would you say, just thinking about it, like the misconceptions have to come from somewhere? And like, I was just thinking as you were talking about like some of the greatest war movies, and they are like, you know, I'm just trying to think of some, like, so like Saving Private Ryan, for example, is a great war movie, but it's more like a drama, and it's more, you know, when you watch that movie, people don't necessarily think, oh yeah, there's a bunch of people who are doing it for themselves because they're not actually like following a bunch of orders. They're out on their own going looking for somebody and getting it done. You know, or you look at Band of Brothers, for example, which is again a great series, and that, you know, a lot of the time you look back at these like they're like older war stories, if you will, like, you know, trying to bring it back into today's, like you see some of the TV shows, you know, I think there was a TV show a few years ago, I watched it with my wife, where it was following the recruits of the army and the, you know, various types of the military, the RAF, like the command, it was a Royal Marine Commando.
Stan Livingstone,
Yeah. So I think sometimes like they deliberately make it over dramatized.
Yeah, there is that. It's TV, innit? You know, you've got to make it give off some impression. But what we got to remember, for anyone that hasn't served in the military or doesn't know anyone served in the military, the training that you go through, basically, you join the military as a civilian, right? The instructors have got not a lot of time to transform you into civilian, into a military, right? And say British Army's 12 weeks, or it was, I think it's 14, I don't know, anyway. It's not a long time, though. You can't get someone in, sit them in a classroom with a load of PowerPoint slides and teach them how to be a soldier like that, right?
What do you mean?
It's hard, fast and aggressive. It's got to be done really quick. And the way the training is, that doesn't follow you through for the whole of your career, because no one would do that, because that's just nuts. Do you know what I mean? So when you get to unit life, it's a lot different. It's a lot more, I say relaxed, but you're not getting locker inspections every morning, or because, do you know what I mean? Like you just wouldn't be able to deal with that. So there is that, the training, because it has to be, and you're doing something that's quite unprecedented, really, because you've got to take someone from Civvy Street or a civilian into that military mindset. So, I used to love watching the documentaries about the Bad Lads Army.
That's it.
The old National Service one. It was absolutely brutal, but you can see why, because you've got a load of people that have come off the street, and you've got it's a quick way of doing it. So, but it sort of gets them in that process, and it gets them in there. But unit life isn't like basic training, because it's just you couldn't live like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so but then you get into unit life, and the training that is delivered, it is still very intense though, and it's very whether it's because of resources are low or time is of the essence or whatever, it's just very quick, and your expectations are to pick stuff up are high. And I'll go back to what I said before. If you carry on like that and you think, you know, well, the expectation to learn a new weapon system, for example, you know, you've got to pick it up straight away. You then think, well, every time I go into an environment or a situation, that's the expectation. I've got to get it straight away. And if you don't, you just have to keep doing this repetition, which falls into construction beautifully, really, especially bricklaying, because it's such a repetitive trade, and you master it by repetition. So there is that misconception, but you're right, the misconception has to come from somewhere, and Hollywood and TV obviously paint a picture of you know, they're basically the selling stuff, aren't they? So they've got to dramatise that. It'd be a bit boring if you were to make a film of Afghan and you just sat around in a compound for 20 hours waiting for the enemy to fire. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be great TV. But things do change, environments change, warfare changes, like everything really. You know, technology is massive now in the military with drones and stuff like that. But at the heart of it are people, and that is what it is. You know.
Well, we've talked a little bit about starting in the military. Now, leaving the military isn't. You don't just leave your job in the military. It's like leaving your whole identity almost behind. For you, what was the hardest part of the transition from being a Royal Engineer into your civilian life?
So there's two parts to it. There was the professional element and the personal element, which kind of interlink, I suppose. But when you leave, you're right when you say when you leave the military, and some people leave the military and they transition really well into Civvy Street for whatever reason. They might know someone, or they might just go in and it's seamless. Some people do it and they become really successful and they do really well. Some people really struggle, and we'll probably touch on that a bit later. But personally, I had a bit of a meltdown, if I'm honest, when I left. I signed off in 2012. I was in Afghan on my second tour there, and I left in 2013. And we had to do a CV writing workshop, and it was an ego deflator, if I'm completely honest. I sat there, a blank bit of paper, and people were doing it on computers, but at the time I didn't turn a computer on. So I did it on paper, and I just couldn't put anything down because I didn't have any. I didn't think I had any skills or any value to bring. And running a mile and a half in 8.5 minutes isn't that much use to a civilian company. Or finding stuff that's designed to blow you up, it doesn't come in that handy. But so it was a big deflator, and I didn't know what to do. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. And I was at a crossroads, and it was tough. It was difficult. And then from a professional point of view, like I say, I didn't really know or think I had anything to add. When you're leaving the military, there's always trend, like everything. There's trends, and at the time, private security was big, because private security is essentially the army without a uniform and less rules and regulations. But the problem with that is the money'd gone in it because the supply was so high, and at the time, anti-piracy was getting big, and the money was good, but they changed legislation and they could arm. You could be armed, basically. So again, the money fell out of that, and I looked into it and I thought, weighed it up, and I just thought, nah. And I didn't really want that lifestyle of being away for long periods of time as well. And then there was always certain industries that were really at the forefront of it, like telecoms they always seemed to have a presence in resettlement, as did like health and safety. Especially, there were course providers that were doing NEBOSH courses for really good prices, but I didn't want to go into that.
Don't blame me.
No disrespect, mate. I couldn't think of anything worse. But so yeah, and the opportunities didn't seem that much really. But I found something somewhere. I mean, bearing in mind, I could barely read or write and turn a computer on, so naturally, the best thing to do is wanted to go and do a degree, which I did, like miraculously. But I found this thing within, and they were not very forthcoming in advertising it. But essentially, the military would pay for your tuition fees. But I didn't have any A levels. I barely had any GCSE, so I had to do an access to higher education course, which a mate of mine was doing, and he was telling me about it. Not military, but he was telling me about it. So I did that, and I kind of, because I'd had quite a lot of my self-worth was really low, and I thought I can't give anything to anyone at the minute, so I have to go to the extreme. And I did think that the degree was the be all and end all. I trained as a bricklayer in the army, in the Royal Engineers, but because you don't get much time doing your trade, I don't call myself a bricklayer because I think it's a disrespect to bricklayers. I can lay bricks, just not that great, so I've got people that I pay to do it for me instead. But the point is I started at the bottom again, and yeah, it was a real battle, a real struggle. But my mindset was changing. I knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it. So I had to commit to something, and I was always asking myself questions. And one of the questions at the start was, what are you doing? And then it went to, what if I fail? But my mind shifted, and I said, well, what if I don't fail? And then it went to, why not? I'm not the first person to leave the army. I'm not going to be the last. So you kind of have to have give your head a little bit of a wobble and go, you could do this. It's not impossible. So yeah, it was a struggle. And to add on to that, like my personal problems, I don't advertise or broadcast it, but I say that, I'm going to say this on a podcast. I'm a recovering alcoholic. So at the time, I was drinking alcoholically and I was drinking very heavily and I was suffering mental health problems. So throw all that in the mix and it ain't the best cocktail, pardon the pun. So, yeah, it was difficult, but somehow you just do it. And then again, like the first question you said, why should you employ a veteran? The levels of resilience are probably second to none. Do you know what I mean? To be able to go all through that and come through the end, and unfortunately some people don't, which needs addressing. But yeah, resettlement should have been a lot easier, but it wasn't. There were opportunities, but not as many. And I think it's important to say as well is veterans don't want charity; they just want opportunity. They don't. Some people might think they deserve something, but really and truthfully, society doesn't owe veterans. They do and they don't, and it's a bit of a taboo subject. But the point I'm getting at is guys and girls that are leaving, they just want opportunity, and the construction industry can offer it in abundance if presented right. So.
Yeah, and I think that takes us nicely into where you're at now with military to masonry. So many veterans leave their service with discipline, as you said, but not really a clear pathway. I can't imagine anything more. I can imagine because I've actually had it, and I have it regularly, actually, that imposter syndrome. And I can imagine you sat there with a blank piece of paper, because I've done it myself, and thought, I have nothing of worth to put on this piece of paper. And that's not because you don't have anything of worth to put on the piece of paper. It's just because you're not in the mindset where you think, do you know what, I have anything of worth to give. But I feel like that's where military to masonry is sort of coming in, because we've talked, 5 minutes ago about the fact that everything that you learn, you had to learn quickly. And if you can turn a civvy into a soldier in 12 weeks,
100%.
Surely you can turn a civvy into a bricklayer I'm not going to say 12 weeks, but if you can turn a civvy to is bricklaying much more difficult than being a soldier? That's not a question. That's sort of just to leave with people. Is a bricklayer, is it more difficult to be a bricklayer than a soldier? I would guess probably not. But what problem is it that military to masonry is out to solve?
The obvious answer is to give people who are at either they've left the military or they're leaving the military, it's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that's not embedded in process and bureaucracy and charities and organisations where you've got to go through layers and layers and layers of people. And essentially military to masonry is 4 of us. There's myself, there's Gary, there's Tony at Grayson, and there's Eve at Masonry Association of Great Britain. 4 individuals. We're all decision makers. We're all business owners, and we all want to do the right thing, which we believe is to form military to masonry. Tony was the one that instigated it. He WhatsApped me once and said, "Look, I see this as an opportunity to be able to do," and it's a no-brainer, really. Once you present it, it's one of them moments you think, "Why didn't I think of that?" What the problem we want to solve is to give people an opportunity and to give people purpose. Unfortunately, a lot of people leave the military and they go down a path where they probably don't want to go down, and they make bad decisions. And I'm not sitting here saying that we can solve the problem, because there's probably a lot of other factors. But what I am sitting here saying is, if anyone is struggling to find employment or to find purpose or to to find something to get up for in the morning, then we can provide a solution. And the solution is through military to masonry. The training that we're going to provide is industry leading. And to sit here and say we can guarantee people work, I will sit here and say we can guarantee people work, because you've got myself and Gary who own brickwork companies. You know, Essex, Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire, that's our sort of patch, if you like. But if someone comes to me and says, or comes to military to masonry and says, I'm really interested, I'm going to be relocating in Leeds, myself and Gary probably won't mind me saying this, is we're of absolutely no use whatsoever. This is where Tony and Eve come in. They know every bricklaying subcontractor in the UK, and like literally they do, and they will find places, because since launching this, and we haven't been overly vocal about it, we have gone public, but since launching it, the buy-in from the industry has been amazing. Why wouldn't it be? Because bricklaying's quite a working class trade, and working class people love the military because they might know people, or they might have relatives, or their sons, daughters. So there's that real close connection, and the guarantee that we'll give you world industry leading training by people who are in the industry, i.e. Gary at Site Ready Solutions, and we will find you employment, we'll find you jobs. And the beauty of it, again, we're not buried in bureaucracy, or, you know, if we want to make a decision, we'll make a decision. And that's not arrogance, but that's fact.
Yeah.
Because we're not motivated by money, we're not motivated by KPIs or anything like that. We're motivated by doing the right thing and solving a problem, or two problems really. Skill shortage in the construction industry, which we all know. We're not at full tilt in a minute. You know, we're nowhere near full tilt with demand. But when we do, can we fulfil that? I don't think we can. And you've got 15,000 people leaving the military every year. And I'm not saying we're going to get 15,000 people, 50, 5, 10, like whatever. But the point is military to masonry, it gives an opportunity, and it provides someone to have purpose.
Well, I think that's where it is, isn't it? Good resettlement. I think we call it resettlement, right? After you've been in the military, I guess you'd call it resettlement. It does feel purposeful, like not necessarily transactional. So I think people are absolutely within their right to go, do you know what? I've served time in the military. I deserve the opportunity. Yeah. Not I deserve a job. I deserve the opportunity to have some sort of training. And actually, I think the military do it all right. You know, I live in South Morden near Carver Barracks, and a lot of people, you know, in fact, my neighbour 2 doors down is in the military. He's, I can't remember what he is. He's officer, I think, somewhere around. He's something like that. But he was saying, we were chatting about people leaving the military, because I said that you were coming on. And he said, you know, sometimes the army generally do a pretty good job of letting people retrain, or they try and retrain them and reintegrate them within the military. So one of my friends, Justin, was a medic, and then he trained to be he was then a PTI, is it? Personal training PTI. He then joined a different regiment and became a PTI. So he wasn't then on tour anymore. He was base led and was then training people to be fit. Press ups. Yeah, basically. Yeah. But I think he was like a para PTI, or is a Pathfinder a thing?
Pathfinder. Yeah.
So I think he might have been something like that. So he
They're
was
like
working
one up from paras.
So he was like working with some of like the fittest people that you have to. I don't know, but what does a good resettlement look like into bricklaying? So we've talked about what military to masonry is going to solve, but like, what makes it better looking than any other opportunity than they might have?
The answer's simple. It's industry led. There's no point. There's no value of having someone who's a pen pusher in an office somewhere churning out criteria for courses. It's got to be industry led. We're not what military to masonry isn't, we're not giving someone the skills to build a garden wall at the house and never pick a trowel up again. This is a career-defining decision that if you wanna get into bricklaying, it's a very short, intense course. I'm not saying that you're going to go and do 2 weeks and you're going to become a bricklayer. Like, that's just not. But it's a good foundation. Gary says day 11 is the most important. I love that. It is day 11 because it's the first day on site of who you're going to work for. The reason why it's so short is because it's relevant. It's intense. It is going to be 8-9 hours of bricklaying every day for 2 weeks, but it's relevant. You know, we know what we're building on site because we own bricklaying companies. It's absolutely pointless trying to teach someone to build a Gothic arch.
Well, I've worked for Gary for 6 years now, and I can wholeheartedly say I've never even seen a Gothic arch on any site, on any new house building site we've been on.
If you're coming to work for not just me or Gary or whoever across the country on new build housing sites or care homes or high-resi tower blocks, we know what you need. Now, it's not to say that you can't improve and go on to do that sort of stuff, but we know what you like. You got to remember as well, construction methodology is changing, and it's changing because we need to build quicker. So timber frame housing, right? You know, groundworkers in, you put your scaffold up, you drop a timber frame and put the roof on, you wrap it in brickwork. We know what skills you need to be able to do that as a bricklayer. High-rise resi blocks, you know. There's a lot involved in that sort of work. The brickwork is probably the easy bit, if I'm honest. It's all the cavity barriers and the fire stops and stuff like that. So we know what is needed to get people equipped for day 11. So good resettlement, to me, is relevant, and it's got to be industry-led. Got to be. But it's pointless having it any other way because you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree day 11 is the day. And also, like, I think if you can learn a weapon system in 10 days, and I think you can learn how to lay bricks in 10 days. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not, these things, especially for sort of high functioning people that have worked in the military, it's not, and every bricklayer that I speak to, I'm not a bricklayer, obviously. I literally couldn't build my own wall, I don't think. Every bricklayer I speak to tells me that bricklaying isn't exactly rocket science. It's laying one on top of two. And if you can lay one brick, you can lay 500 bricks. It might take you a bit longer, but if you can lay one brick, then you can lay as many as you like. And if you're being taught by an industry professional who actually lays bricks day in, day out, you know, and wants to be there and wants to teach you, there's no reason that the people coming from the military, if they really want it, can have it. They just can. I think it's great, to be honest with you.
What just to add on that as well, what you got to remember is if you've done 4 years in the military, right, your service doesn't start till you're 18. So you do 4 years, you're leaving at 22. If you're entering a new career at 22 years old, you've got to make up for lost time. So as well as being able to pick up stuff very quickly, your mindset automatically is, I'm making up for lost time. Now, I did my dissertation in ex-military to construction, but it was in like more of a managerial capacity. And without boring you to death with the results, the biggest result, and I interviewed 12 ex-military guys working in construction, was the progression in their career was astronomical. It like unbelievably quick compared to their counterparts. And the reason for that is because they're making up for lost time. And with bricklaying, you can earn decent money. You can earn good money. And if you're on, say, an improver's rate when you get out and you get chatting to guys and they're saying, oh yeah, we're on 230, 240 a day, they're straight away, they're like, I want to earn that. And the only reason you're going to earn that is by being of that value. So they will pick it up a lot quicker. And you've got to remember, these guys are making up for lost time as well. So if any employers listening to this, which they will be, you've also got to remember, when you take no disrespect to school leavers, and I want to talk about this in a bit as well, but a big part of training is not necessarily bricklaying and learning your trade, but it's conduct, and it's the behaviour on site and how you conduct yourself, and how you, because you come from school where you're kind of wrapped in cotton wool a little bit, and you go into the big bad place where the workplace. A lot of that is quite hard to teach, isn't it? Because there's no book, is there, of how to
be a human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Well, you take veterans, the Army or the Air Force or the Navy, they've done that for you. And to be fair, there's probably no better place to be able to learn that. So you're bypassing all that, and they're a bit older, they might have a bit more about them, but they know how to conduct themselves, they're teachable, and they want to get on. So, you know, let the military do all that for you, and, you know, ready-made, really. So,
yeah, I think it's a value-based system, isn't it? Like, there's no book that tells you how to be a human, but the Army, well, the forces do a pretty good job because they're value-based. And I guess going back to the training bit of the military, the fast sort of accelerated training that there is, I guess that sort of works as a big funnel to get rid of the people that you don't want in the military. Like, if people drop out after a week, great. They haven't wasted the next 11 weeks. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Hating every minute and then come to the end and, you know, and then the CO or whoever goes, "Nah, sorry, you ain't gonna make it anyway." Do you know what I mean? So by the end, you've got that values-based person because they obviously want to be there. They have to abide by the rules. They have to abide by the values, and they treat people, you know, in the way that they want to be treated. Like, you might have a laugh and mess about, and, you know, I'm sure you could tell me plenty of stories where, do you know what I mean, you've hidden people's gear or put stones in rucksacks. That's like the premium one. Most of my mates are like, we chucked a big rock in this geezer's rucksack and he carried it halfway around Dartmoor or whatever. But I think that's like what you're alluding to, really, isn't it? The idea that you have this sort of ready-made workforce who all want to turn up, you know, and even if they're not going to be, they don't want to be a bricklayer. Like, maybe they just love working outside and want to be, you know, your hod carrier, or maybe or health and safety, dare I say it. But, you know, there are good pathways into it. Every bricklaying company needs someone looking after their health and safety. They need people being hod carriers. They need, you know, they need
hod carriers is massive at the minute, and there's a massive shortage. Like actual hod carriers. There's not many bricklaying companies I know and speak to that don't struggle with finding good hod carriers, because the problem is the hod carriers that are good are looked after and they're employed. And you can earn decent money doing it. And, you know, like you say, if you just like being outdoors and you like the physical element, it's a flipping ideal job. Do you know what I mean? It really is. And with hod carrying as well, is you've got to remember is, like, you're the support element of the bricklayers. Without the hod carriers, like, one thing I can't stand as an owner of a bricklaying company is seeing bricklayers load out, because it's like, you might as well just get £50 notes and throw them off the scaffold, right? So having good, reliable hod carriers doing that, and if you've served in the military and you've got a bit about you, and you can actually have lads working with you and, you know, under your leadership, then what that does is it takes away the foreman having to worry about bumping out and this, that and the other, and constantly telling hod carriers that they need this, they need that. So, you know, that's a massive thing. And the thing with construction and bricklaying, it's good and bad at the same time. There's so many different ways of getting into it. There is so many different pathways to go. I mean, you could get 3 owners of companies, and I can guarantee you they've all got different routes. 3 construction directors, all got different routes. And it's great, but it's also, it muddies the water a little bit, in the sense that sometimes you just want that direction of how to get from A to B. But, so yeah, there is a lot to, there's so many different pathways to take, and it's just, it's a minefield, really.
Well, once they're there, it's a minefield. I like what you did there, by the way. We love a
That
pun.
was
We love a
unintentional.
pun on the Hodcast, especially as you're an
unintentional.
engineer.
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah. Construction sites, sorry, can be really loud places, but there are often the quiet, unspoken about things about how people maybe can't cope. What have you seen around sort of mental health on site, maybe within your own company, that's not really talked about enough?
Good question. I think it would be unfair to say that mental health and the ability to talk about it hasn't improved. I think it has. I think there's conversations that are being had on site that probably wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago. Definitely. There's always room for improvement, though. I'm no expert, and the thing is, when you talk about mental health and that, it's quite a taboo subject, I suppose, and you have got to be careful in the sense that you can't just throw out advice willy-nilly because you're not qualified. However, I think there is a massive problem in the industry with addiction and with substance misuse and alcoholism. And like I said at the start, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I can see it, and it's horrible to see. And I'd probably say a lot of the mental health issues are sort of attributed to substance misuse and addiction. And it's a horrible thing to see, because I know that there is a solution, there is a way out, but you've got to want to need it, and you've got to want it. There are conversations that have on site, like I say, that wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago, but there's still massive room for improvement. I find, this might be a bit unpopular. My biggest fear with mental health is people getting things confused or misinterpret. How do I say this right? So I believe words lose their meaning and definition. Years and years ago, to be a legend, you had to pull a sword out of a stone. Right? Today, you just got to turn up on a Monday and you're a legend. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of gets a bit diluted. And I use this as an example, right? And it might be a bit unpopular, but I'm going to go there anyway. When someone says they got a migraine, and you say, I'll see you later, then you need to go to a darkened room, lie down, and, no, I'll be all right, I'll see it through. You ain't got a migraine. You got a headache. If you generally got a migraine, you can't see anything through, right? And I liken that with depression. If you've actually suffered with depression, it is one of the most horrible things in the world, because whatever you do is negative. Whatever your thought process is, it finishes it as a negative, and your motivation levels are like, it's horrible. And if my heart goes out to anyone that is suffering with depression, because it is horrible. When people say they're depressed and you actually start talking to them, and you're like, well, you're not depressed, mate, you're just a bit down in the dumps. Like, my fear is the genuine sufferers get lost in the long grass because of it's getting a bit too diluted. Pressure, we've got to remember as well, pressure is a motivator. Pressure is good, but it's got to be, it can't be applied like ridiculous. Like, there's so much pressure in the industry. There really is. It's insane. Like, unneeded as well. But we've got to remember that pressure is a motivator, and to produce, sometimes you need pressure, and you can't just crumble at the first sign of it. But having said that, if people are genuinely suffering, then this is what I mean. Like, this is such a sensitive subject, if you like. But like I said, just my genuine fear is with mental health, that the actual people suffering do get lost because of it. It just gets thinned out so much. I was watching something the other day, and they were saying that the difference between mental health issues and mental health or mental well-being or something, and it really struck a chord with me because it was so true in the way that I was saying that words are losing their definition. And yeah, it's a tough one, but I'd also think as well is like, we do need to talk, we do need to have, but we need to change the behaviours as well. Behaviour's everything. And it really annoys me, and I'm going to say it, with these big main contracting organisations, that they post out stuff on LinkedIn about mental health and, you know, put posts up in the toilet and, you know, if you're struggling with mental health, yet they're not paying their supply chain, or they're putting on ridiculous deadlines. They're putting on insane standards that is just crippling people. And you think, well, putting a poster or clicking a button on LinkedIn saying that I support mental health is easy. Changing the behaviour is a difficult thing, but changing the behaviour is going to have the impact. Not all main contractors are like that, I've got to say, but it does frustrate me because it's like, are you for it or are you not? You know, what you're basically saying is your mental health really, really important, but it can't be at the detriment of our profit. It can't be at the detriment of our shareholders meetings that we're going to have. Do you know what I mean? A lot like health and safety. You know, you go into, and everyone must have experienced, you go into site, health and safety, really, really strict. The minute they're beyond program, I don't know about it, just get on with it. Yeah, and you think, well, is it important or not? Because if it's not important when you're behind program, surely you can do it at any time. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, mental health is massive in society, but in construction as well. But I genuinely think we've got a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's a pandemic or whatever, but it's a very, very serious thing. You know, substance misuse and addiction of whatever type. And addiction is horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Whatever, you know, gambling, drugs, alcohol, whatever. It's a massive issue in the construction industry, massive, and something needs to be done.
Well, I'd be amiss if I didn't ask you what you think. Not what can be done. What the first step can be. We had I had Andy Ramage. He would have gone out last week, and he's a big advocate of just trying. So he doesn't drink. He hasn't drunk for about 10 years. But we talked about just trying something out for 30 days. So try not drinking any alcohol for 30 days. You know, so for you, what would be like the first step of your 1,000-mile journey in that? You know, because it takes time to get that distance, to get 1,000 miles. It takes time. And I was talking with Andy about consistency and time. If you have enough consistency and enough time, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So for you, what would be the first step in changing what we've just talked about?
Asking for help. When I was drinking, when I was in active alcoholism, I could stop drinking for periods of time, but I could never stay stopped. And I tried everything. The only thing I didn't try was ask for help. And it's, especially as a man, dare I say it, but I'm going to go there, especially as a man, in the military, in construction, it's very macho. It's very, you know, there's a lot of testosterone floating around. And that misconception of asking for help as a weakness. Well, so what if it's a weakness? So what? If I say to you, right, my alcohol is costing me a lot more than money now. It is beating me. So what if I'm weak? The paradox of it is it's actually a strength to be able to recognise that and ask for help. So, yeah, I'd say asking for help and knowing that there is a solution. Because it's a funny one, though, isn't it? Because not everyone in the military or not everyone in the construction industry has got an alcohol problem. Some people just might want to drink a bit too much. But it's when it's affecting more than your bank balance is when it's got to be addressed. But you've got to want it. But yeah, definitely just ask for help. Be vulnerable. There's no shame in it. And I do think we're getting better at it. I do think. And, you know, it would do society or the industry or whatever a disservice to say that it hasn't, because it definitely has promoted to being able to talk about it a lot more. But yeah, if I suppose if anyone is listening to this that is struggling, there is a solution, and you just got to start by asking for help. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, it does baffle me with the mental health conversation. So if I broke my arm, I might have 6 weeks off work, and I'd come back to work, and no one would necessarily bat an eyelid if I. Do you know what I mean? I just carry on working as if nothing had happened. But when you say, "Oh, I've had a breakdown," or or I'm suffering with addiction, or I'm suffering with this or that or the other, there is that like stigma attached to it. Oh, well, maybe you can't rely on them then. Maybe you can't.
No,
and I think that is wrong. Like, I still hold that bias within myself, and I can't work out why. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's a historic thing. Maybe it's oh, this type of person will always let you down. That type of illness will always reoccur. That type of. But it's no different to pulling a muscle or, and I feel like I'm oversimplifying it a little bit by almost trivialising it, but it's not. It's just the same. If I break my arm, it's still an ailment, it's still a problem, and I still can't do the thing I want to be able to do, but it heals. And maybe it takes a bit less time to heal than a behavioural issue or an addiction, but those things still heal as well. And, those people can be relied on, but the stigma around it needs to go away, I think. Yeah,
definitely. And it's not an overnight thing, is it? I don't think. If we had the answers, I probably wouldn't be, having a brickwork company. I'd probably be doing something else. Do you know what I mean? But I know what you mean, and I think a lot of it though is you break your arm, it's visible, isn't it? Anything in there isn't, and that's probably the tough thing. But yeah, it's such a deep and complex subject, I think, and something needs to be done though. Something more needs to be done. I think we've overcome the hurdle of talking about it. I think the next step now is to start delving a bit deeper and saying, right, there are issues that need addressing. But it's a behaviour, it's a cultural thing, isn't it, I think? And it's very British as well, isn't it? The whole...
the stiff upper lip.
Pull your socks up, get on with it. My mum used to say to me when I was ill in the morning, you'd be all right once you've had some cereal. Yeah. And it was like...
To be honest, that is so true. My little boy's exactly the same.
It's such a British thing, isn't it? And in a way, you don't ever want to lose that, but also we do need to get with the times a bit more and start I don't know, it's a tough one.
But I guess that's where we look to people like you and Gary and Tony and Eve to build that into your training programs, because and that is actually one of the things that Site Ready is trying to do. Yeah, is trying to build that in those conversations and that in, because there's an industry that has grown from arguably it's the oldest industry there is. People had to build their house. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? At some point in their life, from, whether that's hollowing out a cave or whatever. But the people who are in the industry now will not always be in the industry. So if we're bringing new people in, if we're adding to their training and giving them tools to succeed in not just the trade, but also in life, and actually, coaching's a big thing at the moment. As I said, we had Andy Ramage in, and Gary's on a coaching journey at the moment. I don't know about yourself, but it seems that a lot of people are having coaching and actually offering that as another thing that can happen just adds to the greatness of what you're bringing as military to masonry.
I think one big thing, and I've mentioned it quite a lot, is having purpose, right? And I think if you've got someone who's who might be suffering or whatever, and they can get into, sign up to military to masonry and have that purpose, it would be interesting to see how their mindset or how they've changed, or what their reaction to it is. Because I genuinely believe that you do need purpose in life. And I think as well, there's a lot to be said about getting up in the morning, doing a hard day's work, going home, and providing. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost become not a bad thing, but it's everyone takes it for granted. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a flipping good thing. To be able to provide and to contribute to society and build a career and push forward, it's a good thing. And I do think that, we can get these veterans in at whatever stage and provide them with a career. And, a lot of people have done very well out of construction. I know there's a lot of, bad press and there's a lot of negativity around at the minute, and there always will be. But you can earn a good living out of construction. The opportunities as well are amazing. I said before, the different pathways you can go, and it's a good thing and a bad thing in the sense that it can get a bit confusing. But you can do all right out of construction. And I genuinely don't think there's any other industry apart from private security, for obvious reasons, that mirrors military. The type of people you have on site, the conversations that are had on site. And when you're on exercise, when you're in the army, they're not that dissimilar, and they couldn't be recorded. And if they were, you'd be in a lot of trouble. But the point is there's that camaraderie because you're all in it together, and it's a team effort. And you look at what happens in the military; it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by people. I know technology and this, that, and the other, but at the heart of it is people. You drive down the road. Like, things aren't getting built by accident. No. They're getting built by people, and we should be flipping proud of that. And I do think, construction. Well, the media give the construction industry a real hard time, and I think as an industry, we need to hit back a little bit and go, well, we're building all these beautiful buildings, and we're building this, we're building that. Like, we're not that bad. We don't do ourselves any favours at times, but we get scrutinised in the media, and it doesn't paint a good picture. And I think we should be hitting back, saying, well, what about the good things? What about the success stories of people coming out of prison or leaving school or this, that, and the other, and actually making a career and doing well out of them? So but back to, we weren't talking about that, were we? I've just gone off on a tangent.
No, mate. These are conversations worth having, mate. This is the Hodcast. This is the media. So what you are doing is pushing back against that. It
frustrates me. It infuriates me, actually, that something bad happens and it's all over the papers. It's all on the news. When was the last time? No, I don't know if newspapers, people buy them anymore or whatever. But you put the news on and that, and a success story was on there of, something good happening, whether it be an individual or...
Well, you only really see it once a year with the Pride of Britain Award or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. And I get it. And that is a frustration of mine. One of the... we can delve into all of our frustrations. The media is a frustration, but it's also a great tool. This is media, essentially. And I think the habits of people consuming media, like we talked about earlier, podcasts and stuff, the guys on site that I work with won't necessarily read a book, but they'll listen to a podcast or they'll listen to a book. Do you know what I mean? And there's nothing, while you're... Maybe there's something to be said about, instead of having the radio on and playing like whatever radio station you want to play, fixed radio or whatever, you're playing like an audio book about something that you all want to listen to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, like, that's quite powerful.
If you're allowed it on site.
Well, yeah. But I'm sure people wouldn't care.
Audio police.
Well, but I'm sure people would be more open to, they can't come and turn your radio down. Well, what, you want us to turn off that thing that we're all learning about while we're working?
Yeah.
You're all right with that, are you? Oh, well, I can't imagine the neighbours, complaining over...
Too much positive vibes coming out of your site. I can't handle it.
How dare you be listening to some, mindset growth podcast while you're working? How dare you do that,
No, that's a good point, though. And media in the right hands is powerful, isn't it? And it's... But yeah, it just flipping frustrates me, the negativity we get, and there's no real fight back, is there?
No.
Which there should be.
Well, let's spin that. So we always try and spin that here.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, the best initiatives are built for the next generation. So where do you want military to masonry to be in a few years' time? Say 5 years.
I would love military to masonry to be recognised by the industry, recognised by all three services as the go-to place, the bridge between veterans and the construction industry. I'd love for our first cohort in hopefully April time to come in, absolutely smash it, go out into the big bad world, day 11, be our shop window essentially of saying this is what we are churning out, and then for them to make a real success of it and to put back into military to masonry and to be like a success story. A few years time, we maybe got our own training hub, for example, and they come down as instructors, give up their time and say, I did it, this is where I'm at now, I'd love that. I'd love for it to be recognised within sort of the charities and organisations that help people that are suffering, veterans suffering. I'd love for it to be the phone to go off and say, look, I've got this guy or girl who's really struggling. Can you have a chat? Can you provide them, with some advice or offer them up some training or whatever? And to be able to do that, and I'd love that. What I don't, I know you didn't ask me what I don't want it to be. What I don't want it to be is another organisation that chases money and status and things like that. And I don't want there to be layers and layers of people involved that cause a funnel, basically. I think the beauty of military to masonry is it's very lean in the sense that we can get stuff done very quick because we care and we're not driven by money or it's costing us money at the minute, like if I'm completely honest with you. But it's going to be a good thing, and I'd love for it to get good people in and to provide the industry with decent people, and also, what's to stop other trades copying us? I shouldn't say that. I don't want to lose good people because obviously we want good bricklayers coming through. But I think my passion for helping veterans and people who have left the services probably outweighs what it can give to bricklaying. So if a load of people that mess around with wood decide that they could do like military to carpentry and copy, you know what I mean? What's to say why not?
I think when you the reason the focus I think is on bricklaying at the moment is because there is so many. For every, the sites that I go to, for every 2 electricians, there's probably 10 bricklayers. For every 2 carpenters, there's probably, for every 2, maybe apart from scaffolders, there could be more scaffolders, certainly. But there are, for every 2 tradespeople in a, an inside trade or whatever a trade it is, there's probably 10 bricklayers / some amount of hod carriers in there. Do you know what I mean? Because the bricklaying bit is the bit that takes the most time. Yeah, exactly. That's what it needs.
I have this discussion every single day of the week, and I don't care. I'll die on this hill. Bricklaying is the most resource-heavy industry trade there is in industry. and I won't, it's out
Well, the only one that might come, well, not the only one, little bit of pushback, possibly reinforced concrete, because there are loads of people involved in the baking of but
a lot quicker though.
Exactly, the structure goes up much quicker, right?
And as well with RC frames, when you've got a concrete pour, you've got loads and loads of guys on site. That pour's only going to be a day.
Yeah.
Then they're off. Still fixes a back. But I will die on the hill that bricklaying is the most resource heavy trade there is. So
I'm not going to make you die, by the way, or on a hill.
On a hill, I'd rather.
But I'm happy for you to, if that's what you want to do.
But that's a discussion we have all the time, and that's typically why bricklayers always worked on fortnightly payments, because your wage bill is astronomical. And you're making your money is in the guys on site. not from the plant, not from material. I don't want to get down the roads of payment terms and stuff like that, but the point is, it's so resource heavy, and we do need a lot more bricklayers, and we are losing. Our homegrown workforce is aging. We are seeing a reduction in foreign labour for whatever reason. Young guys and girls are coming through. They are, and I'm not going to die on any hill, but I will push back and say that they are coming through at a pace. We could argue, it depends whereabouts in the country you are. But if we can get veterans in to help plug the gap, I don't know if it might not be the be-all and end-all solution, right? It probably isn't. But what it is it's contributing to a problem.
I think it's a great, mate, yeah. I think you're over-talking it. It is a great initiative, and I think there are so many people out there who are in the military who would love a job in construction.
Because
primarily bricklaying.
I think, a lot of main contractors, and I know Build Force are sort of an initiative, but they're focused mainly on managerial and the sort of white collar. But there's no one really with the trades. And, and I'm not... Management is great, and, QSing, I'm a QS, but, the QSing and all that sort of stuff is great, but they're not building it. The people that are building it are the trades.
As many houses as you want.
Yeah, you can count as many bricks and curbs as you want. It ain't going to get built. We need more people, and it's a resource-heavy industry, and it's just a bit more specifically with bricklaying. And, there's a lot of people that have done very, very well out of bricklaying. And also, it's so visible, isn't it? It's such a tangible thing. Do you know what I mean? You could be that annoying in the car. I built that.
Well, and it's wanted all over the world. Mate, so you could come out of the British military and you could go and get a job in Australia as a bricklayer, no problem.
Mate, 100%.
Literally tomorrow. And I'm not saying that we should be training people to move somewhere else.
No, please stay in the UK.
Yeah, please stay in the UK. But if you wanted to travel for a little while,
mate, 100%.
That's a perfect job.
A couple of young lads last year, they went to Australia, left me to Australia, and fair play to them. They're crying out for them.
Well, they'll come back though. Maybe.
Well, it's a good point though.
It is. Every conversation opens the door to another good conversation. If you could have one person sat in that chair, who would you have?
Hulk Hogan. No.
I definitely don't want Hulk Hogan.
I'm going to say Johnny Mercer.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason for that is for what he was trying to do when he was in Parliament. And he's obviously is he 2-9 commander? Yeah, he was 2-9 artillery commando officer, and he's a massive advocate for veterans, and he was a big voice in Parliament, probably the only voice. So yeah, I'd say Johnny Mercer would be who I choose there.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for an amazing conversation. This has been incredible, and hopefully we'll get you back on again, and you can tell us all about where you're at then.
Hopefully, yeah. I just want one last message.
Go on, Will.
Anyone who's listening to this that knows anyone in the military, leaving the military, left the military, or knows someone that knows someone, whatever. If they are at a crossroads, they do want a career change, they don't know what to do when they leave, please get in touch with us at Military to Masonry. Even if you don't want to particularly venture into brickwork, but you're interested in the construction industry, just get in touch, because it's an incredible opportunity, and there's too many people that have fallen to the wayside. There's too many people who are struggling unnecessarily, and this, I hope, I believe this is going to make a difference and make a change. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here. So I really want to speak to people that are leaving, who have left, and get them through what is going to be a fantastic initiative, and find purpose through the industry and through bricklaying, because it will work. And also, anyone struggling with anything like addiction or whatever, just there is a solution. Ask for help. Don't suffer on your own, because it can be a very lonely place, and that's where it wants you. It wants you on your own. It doesn't like connection. So that's my final message. Cheers.